أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. They say that a student should not speak if a teacher is present, so with the permission of the Shaykh, inshallah, I'll continue. Okay, it would have been awkward if he said no. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam was born, Imam Ali alayhi salam took her in his arms and said, I will not name her before Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi comes. When the Prophet did come, he took her in his arms and said, I would not proceed before my Lord. And so Jibreel came down and he named her Zainab. And this name shows who Zainab is, because Zainul Ab means the one who has the virtues and values, the best of her fathers. Zainul Ab. And that is Zainab. No other name, no other word could have been used for someone like Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam. And in that house that she grew up in, she had a beautiful relationship with her brothers. When she would sleep and the sun would come down onto her face, Imam Hussain alayhi salam would enter the room and he would stand in front of her to guard her by his own shadow. She was guarded by their shadows. To that extent, they would even guard her from the light of the sun. And she had several names, but the name that I want to focus on today, the name that she was given was Al-Alima, the knowledgeable one. And Imam Zainul Abidin would say, Alima ghayra mu'allama. She was the knowledgeable one without being taught the knowledge, as if it was divine. As if it was part of her essence to have that knowledge within her. Not taught knowledge, not alim kasbi, knowledge that is gained from books. And the reason I want to focus on this name is because I believe it was through her ilm that she did what she did after Karbala. It was the ilm that was the most important value in the movement afterwards, and I will mention why. Even from a young age, when Imam Ali alayhi salam would have her in his lap and he would teach her. See, Imam Ali would teach her first numbers. And he says, Quli wahid, say one. And she would say wahid. And he would say, Quli ithnan. And she would say, Ma aqulu ithnain bilisanin ajraytuhu biwahid. How can I say two? I will not say two with a tongue that said one. With the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So she had this knowledge from when she was just a young girl. And this is why when she was nearing the age of 50 years old, and she is in Medina and she has a family, she has her own life with her husband and her children. When Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam decides that they must leave to go to Mecca, she has no doubt. She knows she's coming. Because not just for the fact that he is her brother, but the ilm, the knowledge that this is my Imam. And I go where my Imam goes. And I follow the movement of my Imam. So this mother who has her own family, even after Karbala, you don't hear her mentioning Muhammad and Aun, her sons who were martyred in Karbala. Always Hussain, Hussain, Hussain. And not just as brother, but as Imam. Which means even the relationship she had with her Imam is relationship we can have with our Imam. If we have that ilm, that's my Imam. And that we would follow wherever he follows. And logically the question arises as to why did the woman come with Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam? Why did the woman and children come with him? That night in Medina, when Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam decided that they would now go to Mecca because Yazid had ordered that he take the allegiance from Imam al-Hussain, he went and he gathered his family and told them, we will leave. And he insisted that the women and children come with him. He insisted. And the people, some people would pressure him, as in, go, but you don't have to take the woman and the children with you. But it was that important. Because if you think about it, when the Imam was going towards Kufa, he wasn't going to be killed. The Imam was going for a mission to implement the divine order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth. He was going for the divine goal. The goal which maybe we don't think about so much. And on the way to Kufa, in this desert land, if there was no one left to carry on the message, that would have been it. 30,000 verses 72. And they could have diluted the story in any way they wished. And so the woman and the children coming with the Imam was a very wise move. And it showed with what happened after the day of Ashura. And this is something that the human can see, just, it's badihi, it's obvious. Now if you go right now, what happened in Nigeria last year with Sheikh Zakzaki, and if we don't know, we should know about that. In the time when it was happening, I asked some people in London, the Nigerians, have you heard about what's happening in your country with this man, Sheikh Zakzaki? And they would say, yeah, these are troublemakers. These people, these Shia, they have this new movement and they're making trouble. And I thought to myself, okay, so there is divided opinion on who these people are. But can anyone say that these women who were massacred and thrown into mass graves, and these children who were laying upon the floor mutilated, they were troublemakers? The women? See, when the women and the children are with you in the movement, clearly you can see who the oppressed are. Clearly. And so, like, Sheikh Zakzaki's son was a student in the Hawza with me. We were in the same class. And Sheikh Zakzaki's son was martyred 2 years ago when he went back to Nigeria for the summer holiday. And during the protest on Yom al-Quds, the Nigerian army shot him in the stomach and let him die on the ground. And he never came back. And I remember that morning when I woke up and I saw his picture, he said, Shaheed, I couldn't believe it. But I knew it, I know him. Okay? But most people don't. Most people don't know who the oppressed one is or the oppressor is. Maybe as Shia we automatically say they're the oppressed, but we should still look into it. But most people won't know. But when the women and children are there, that is a point that cannot be discussed. And that's why there are even reports. There are articles written about how Malcolm X was influenced by a Shia man towards the end of his life when he was going more towards traditional Islam and became a Sunni Muslim, and he went to Hajj, that when he found out about the story of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, he was very affected by it. And if anyone here has read the autobiography of Malcolm X, you can see at the end of the book, he keeps talking about now is the time for martyrs. And perhaps it's a coincidence, but perhaps not. Perhaps he was influenced that even though people kept trying to assassinate him, he kept having his wife and his children in the front row. And sure enough, when he was assassinated, they were right there and they saw it happen. Thank you. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so, you look at this influence that he had, and that could not have happened without the women that were in Karbala. And at the front line, the one leading these women was Sayeda Zainab alayhi salam, the alima. On the day of Ashura, Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam told her that he was going to be martyred. And he told her, now your allegiance will go from me to my son, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. And now her allegiance that she had, this unmoving allegiance, was transferred to Imam Zain al-Abidin. And when the 11th of Muharram came, and the women were taken as captives, the women and the children, and they were chained, and their tents were burnt, Umar ibn Sa'ad ordered that they move the caravan past the bodies in Karbala, past the martyrs. And so Sayyeda Zainab, as she went by, for the first time, she started reciting the prose. She calls out to her grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, And she says, هذا حسينك مرمل بالدماء مقطع الأعضاء. This is your Hussein, covered in blood, mutilated. And everyone began to cry and lament. And this is narrated by Al-Tabari and other narrators. And so people began to cry and lament. So she began this mourning with a certain type of prose. Straight after Karbala, she did not wait. Even as they're being taken captives, fearful of what's about to happen, where are they going to take us? And sure enough, they take them to Kufa, to this majlis, this place where she's so used to, because she grew up here. When her father was dispelling justice in the land where her children played, and now she's taken in as a prisoner. But she walks in with dignity, despite the clothes they were wearing, despite the way they came in, despite the shackles. She told them to gather around her, so that when she goes inside, it's not as someone who is undignified. And she walked in, head held high. And Ibn Ziyad was shocked by this. Who is this woman? And he asked her, who are you? And she didn't respond. Who are you to ask me who I am? She didn't respond. They had this izz, the Ahlul Bayt. They had the izz. It's true that we should be humble. Humility is a big part of Islam. But anger is not a bad thing. When it's anger for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's why He gave it to us, to use it in those circumstances. And so this izz that she had, Ibn Ziyad couldn't handle it. He asked twice more until the servants told him, this is Zainab bint Ali. Right? They had this izz. With us, when we just travel to an airport and we don't know what to say, and right? And we get so nervous from these people, that how are they going to judge us, and based on how I look and my beard and my headscarf? Why? Where's your izz gone? What happened to our izz? Last year in Ashura, on the day we were walking in Dearborn in the procession, and a man was carrying the American flag in the procession. Now fair enough, someone lives in America, they're American citizen, I have no quarrel with that, no one should. But to carry that flag, which was built upon slavery and massacring a native people, and carrying that flag in Ashura to save face, is that really worth it? What happened to your izz? What happened? And at the masjid that night, I mentioned this, and the man came up to me and said, you can say this because you were born in London. They can't do anything to you. Man, I'm not telling you to swear at this country. I'm not telling you to spread negative things about it, but don't be so proud about it. Why? Why do we have to try so much to be like everyone else, so normal? Right? Whatever standard that has been made to become and imposed upon us, we keep getting more and more normal every year, and normal keeps changing, apparently. What happened to our izz? Yet she was sitting there in this place in front of Ibn Ziyad with dignity and izz. And he said to her, how do you find what happened? How do you find how God killed your family? How did you find what happened on Ashura? And what did she say? And we all know the famous line. But because she's al-halima, she said that line. Because she has the knowledge. Did she look to the heads that were taken off of their bodies, put on spears? Did she look to the baby with the arrow in his neck? What did she look towards? Sometimes when we go through trouble in life, we get the audacity to say, why me? Did she look and ask, why me? Or did she say, ma ra'aytu illa jamila? I saw nothing but beauty. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. She saw things in a divine way. There are so many lessons to talk about. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. But so many lessons to take from Sayyeda Zainab. And always because of this ilm that she had. And she would tell the people of Kufa. She told them, do you realize what you have done and which heart you have severed? You have committed an act which would make the sky fall down and crush the mountains. And again, just like the rhetoric of her father, Zainul Ab, she makes everyone cry. People begin to put their hands on their mouths. They don't know what to do. They're starting to realize, okay, this is the family of the Prophet. Apparently, our religion is based on his teachings. What are we doing? This is not easy, brothers and sisters. Think about it, being taken to a governor, let alone what happened with Yazid. It's not easy, the stand that she made. And people began to cry. And then Ibn Ziyad looked and saw Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam and said, who are you? He said, Ana Ali ibn al-Hussain. And he ordered them to kill him. He ordered his guards to kill him. And Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam, once again, the allegiance had gone from Imam Hussain alayhi salam to Imam al-Sajjad. And she ran to him and held him. If you kill him, you have to kill me as well. And at least they had this much humanity, if you want to call it that. At that time, their moral code did not allow for them to kill the woman. They could behead Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, but they wouldn't kill women. At least they had that. And so that would have been too obvious to show that they were on the wrong, because there was so much propaganda at the time. There was so much propaganda to try to make the Imam and his movement seem like people who were apostates and had left their religion. And now she was flipping all of that on its head. And this is something astonishing if you think about it. When she went to the actual oppressor and she spoke to them and rattled their hearts. If we can all gather together against oppression, that's an amazing thing. Like what happened in Yemen the other night. If we can all gather and we go and protest, that's an amazing. But imagine going to the perpetrators of the crimes and shaking their hearts and rattling them from their foundations and affecting them to the extent that they cry. Imagine you go to the Saudi monarchy and you make them cry. That's what she did. If you put it into context in our day and age, it's astonishing. But that's what she did. She rattled the hearts of the actual oppressor. And then they took her from Kufa to Sham. And Yazid is waiting, anticipating. He wants to boast, he wants to gloat. He's been waiting for this his entire life. And as they come in once again with dignity and izz, despite the shackles and the clothes that they were wearing, so, Yazid brings the golden, and he puts Imam Hussain alayhi salam's head on it, and he starts to, with his stick, play with his lips, trying to provoke the Ahlul Bayt, to see what they would say. And Sayeda Zainab once again stood up to him. Imagine going to a king, the king of Damascus, and all these lands, and standing up to him in front of all of his followers. And she says to him, how dare you touch the lips of Hussein? He starts reciting this poetry, how this is a revenge for what happened in Badr, when his grandfathers were killed in Badr by Imam Ali alayhi salam. They used to hate Imam Ali alayhi salam. This is part of the reason they hated Ahlul Bayt so much, because he killed so many of their families from the Quraysh. It all goes back to Quraysh, back in Arabia. And so Yazid and Sayyeda Zainab alayhi salam, they're from the same tribe. But when the Prophet had left, they had a war. And Yazid's ancestors, they were defeated by the Prophet and the Imam. And so now he's saying this is for what happened in Badr, and he's gloating. And she told him, you think that just because you are up there with this authority, that you can look down on us, that Allah has favored you upon us? Is it fair? And everyone's watching. And she starts to hit the delicate points. She said, is it fair, O son of the noble ones? That's what he was describing himself as. Is it fair that your women are in chambers, safe, whilst the women of the Prophet are here with no protector? Is that fair? She brings up all these situations. How did the Prophet treat the people in Mecca when he took over Mecca once again? Abu Sufyan, the grandfather of Yazid. But what else can you expect, she says, from the one who is a descendant of the eater of livers, Akilatul Akbad. She brought up Hind when she ate the liver of Hamza. Look at how she's bringing up the lineage, the historical context, the educational context. She's hitting him from all angles. The issue of women, right? She knows all the weak spots. Al-Alima. That's how she was able. And at the end of all of that, she starts comparing him to her. You are this and I am this. She belittles him. And Yazid starts to panic. He doesn't know what to do. He even starts to blame Ibn Ziyad. And he brings one of his reciters, the poets, to recite prose and praise him. And as he begins to recite this, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam gets up and he says that amazing speech, amazing rhetoric, amazing orative skill. When you just read his speech, you think, how can he come up with this on the spot? Just amazing. Man arafani faqad arafani. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَعْرِفْنِي أَنْبَأْتَهُ بِحَسَبِي وَنَسَبِي. He who knows me, knows me. And if you don't know me, I will tell you about my lineage. أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ, O people, أَنَا ابْنُ مَكَّةَ وَمِنَى أَنَا ابْنُ زَمْزَمَ وَالصَّفَى أَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ حُمِلَ عَلَى الْبُرَاقِ فِي الْهَوَى أَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ أُسْرِيَ بِهِ مِنَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ الْأَقْصَى أَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ بلغ به جبرائيل إلى سدرة المنتهى أنا ابن من دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى أنا ابن من أوحى إليه الجليل ما أوحى أنا ابن من صلى بملائكة السماء أنا ابن محمد المصطفى. Second time for Sayyidah Fatima Zahra alayha salam. And the third for Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussain alayhum as-salam. See, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, he starts bringing up his lineage. But look at the story that he chooses to bring up. I am the son of the one who was taken on the Isra wa Mi'raj. Because that story in the Quran, no one can deny it. The miracle story of the Prophet. Every Muslim must believe in this story. It's a miracle story. The night he went from Mecca to modern day Palestine in one night, and then had the Mi'raj and ascended into the heavens. In the Quran, something that our intellects cannot comprehend, but we must believe in it because we must believe in it based on faith. Not science or any other thing. This is faith. Right? Divine revelation. He brings up this story. As I am the son of the one who was taken by the Buraq, the horse-like creature, into the heavens. He mentions all of this. Everyone is shocked. Everyone sees this is the son of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. People begin to be confused. They again flipped it on its head. The propaganda was no longer working. And then Yazid was worried. A revolt began to happen. There was commotion. A Syrian man came to take Sayyidah Fatima, the young daughter of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and Sayyidah Zainab said, you can't take her. And neither can he. About Yazid. Yazid said, I can if I wished. She said, no, you cannot. Unless you want to take another religion for yourself, then you cannot. You see, again, she hits him with that point. Because he's trying to be as a spokesperson of Islam. She just took that from him. She's using logic. Al-alima. She notices his fallacies and she corrects them. Then he tells her that it was your brother who left this religion. And she says, if it was for your family to be guided, they were guided by my family. If your ancestors were guided, they were guided by my family. How could you say we left the religion? And so people notice this is ridiculous. And soon enough, Yazid agrees to release them. He cannot afford to keep them. And Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam tells him, I will tell my aunt Zainab. And Zainab comes and says, oh Yazid, we have not been able to mourn for Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam since we got back. And so they organized a house, a residential house in Damascus. And the women came and they wore black and they began to cry. And this was one of the first majalis to be recited for Imam al-Hussain in Damascus, where Yazid was residing. And then they came back, the caravan came back to Medina. And they were met by the people of Medina crying. And Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam again gives another amazing speech. Sayyeda Zainab goes straight to Rasulullah. She says, "My grandfather, I give you news that Hussain has been martyred." And then everyone gathered, and again she began to recite prose and poetry in remembrance of the Imam. But again, this all comes back to what? Al-Alima. It was with her knowledge. So brothers and sisters, I don't have much time. But what I wanted to get from the name Al-Alima, recited with this story, is that she knew about zamanuha wa makanuha, about her time and her place. She knew about them. She was aware. She wasn't just a random person trying to take a position. Many times we think that Sayeda Zainab stood up, let's stand up. But with no education, no knowledge, how do you stand up? How? You must have this first. So have that knowledge in order to stand up. That's a very important thing to take from her story. That knowledge, by the way, is not in the books only. It's not the issue of information. True knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we come to these majalis of Abu Abdullah every year, don't let these majalis come to you every Ashura after Ashura in 10 years. You still don't know much. Don't let that happen. Don't let people like me just tell you a story. Go and find out. Go and check the sources. Maybe I said something wrong. You have an intellect. You have an jabbar. You have an amazing mind. Do not limit it to just someone talking at you. Use it. Understand the goals of the Imam. We have, in our tradition, we have the Raj'a, where everyone comes back. Imam Hussain alayhi salam is going to come back one day. And if he came back now, 1,400 years later, he sees what we're doing. Wallah, they're all still crying for me. Oh, that's good. Okay, alhamdulillah, thank you. But as for my goals, what did you guys do? What have you done since then? My objectives, were they fulfilled? Oh, you're just still crying? Don't get me wrong, mourn for Abu Abdullah. It's one of the best things that we can do in life. But mourning is not an end, it's a means. We have made it an end. Okay, we have made it an end. It's a means towards something greater. So combine the ilm with the mourning, go towards the goals. Don't just stop here. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.